Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Santa Cruz, California native jazz music maker Keshav Batish. We caught up with him in early July to talk about his debut 2021 CD, Binairies and Cycle, that will be released on July 9th, 2021. When he was growing up, he had a mentorship with his father and late grandfather. From there, he would become well-educated and versed in the jazz world, and he opens up about this and so much more. Enjoy.
Beautiful. Great to hear from you, Joe.
Hey, nice to talk to you, man. Thanks for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, you got it. You got it.
So on the 9th of July, you have Binaries and Cycle that's coming out. And before we get into kind of how you put this album together, it's coming out as kind of we're getting on the tail end of COVID and things have been strange with no live music. So talk to me a little bit about maybe the wave of emotions of releasing this now.
It's really serving me as kind of a frozen kind of piece of, I certainly, my own life and the life of my collaborators when we recorded this was basically in the middle of the pandemic. So all four of us collectively kind of charged the music with just how it felt to be in the middle of a pandemic. And I'm happy that both the recording, in terms of the physical, the media itself really came out in a raw manner. And then certainly the music, I'd like to think also reflects that. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at with processing the music, how it relates to, certainly the time that it was produced in.
So does the name, the title of the album have anything to do with what was kind of going on while you were putting this together?
Possibly. Many of the things I was processing through the pandemic really came in cycles and waves, so there's like waves of anxiety, wondering, what is to come, and waves of doubt and then also hope and leaning towards kind of a joy of communion with your community, knowing that it is to come in the future, and certainly being on the other side, I'm kind of taking a second glance at it and certainly observing those cycles within the work.
Talk to me a little bit about your beginnings, where you were born and raised, and kind of how music became your life.
So I was born and raised in Santa Cruz, California. Kind of lived this, and I guess continue to live this kind of dual identity of growing up in a household that is, I'd say, a fairly rich community in itself of South Asian peoples, and then outside of the house, once I'd step, out to go to school or, later on playing gigs, I was kind of coming into contact with, let's say the Santa Cruz culture or the California culture, which was certainly a subset of that, which is American. So I guess between these two poles, I was and continue to kind of live within my own identity. Within the household I grew up in, it was, a very deeply musical and spiritual household, and that I continue to live in to this day. Starting with my grandfather and my grandmother, they kind of began this connection to music within the family, and they passed it on to their kids, and then now on to us at this kind of third generation. So I kind of grew up with music in the house and really didn't, it felt very normal to pursue a life in music, and so I never really questioned it, and I think that kind of imbued me with certainly a confidence in pursuing music as a life's path that, I'm lucky to have had that and continue to have that support from them. So I think that foundation really shaped kind of my outlook on, where I'm headed next and how I feel most importantly in the present.
So talk to me a little bit about jazz influences, maybe your first album or what really swayed you to, get into it and really dig it.
I remember showing up in, I think it was in junior high. I was in 8th grade, and that was the first year I played drums in a jazz band. And I was recommended Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, and the album Blue Train by John Coltrane. And so those were kind of my foundational records in terms of kind of the I don't want to say the canon, because that kind of, it makes this kind of assumption that jazz is like this frozen in time tradition. It established some of the greats for me, like Coltrane and Miles Davis. And at the same time, my friends and I were really working through some of the contemporary artists that were playing at that time. So I think the first album I bought in terms of jazz musicians that were playing right around that time was the album's called, I think, Voyager Live by Night by Eric Harland, which was really monumental for me in many ways, one of them being that Eric Harland's a drummer and he's leading a band. So to kind of see that a drummer could be a band leader, really direct the sound of the music, certainly, compose that which is written and kind of facilitate the spontaneous part of it as well. It was really striking for me. And I think that also gave me the courage to kind of see my life's path as, not just a drummer, but a holistic musician who also happens to play drums.
Beautiful. What was the first live jazz show you saw that really blew your doors down?
Oh, man. I believe it was the Larry Goldings trio. So it's Larry Goldings on Hammond, Peter Bernstein on guitar, and Bill Stewart on drums. And really, to this day, that's like one of my most favorite groups. They've been working together forever, and it you can really hear it in the music. It has this quality of interaction that really can only happen when you play with the same people and kind of just largely get to know each other personally, which is what I hope to be facilitating in my own group as we move forward.
So talk to me a little bit about, with this album, what do you ultimately want the listener to get from this?
I guess as the person who made the music, it's such a mixed bag to kind of direct the listener. I'd hope that the kind of directed explorations that we move through in the music kind of hopefully could provide an emotional or a spiritual vessel for them to, hopefully work through certainly what they've been going through throughout this pandemic. Certainly, I'd hope it could be a healing medium. I certainly believe that music is a profoundly healing medium, and so if it could provide some sort of solace or healing for them, then I feel like I'm doing my job.
What do you like the best about being a professional musician?
I think it's such a rich way to lead life, and I say rich because it's more enriching for me. I guess since I grew up in it, I never really felt I chose music. It kind of just happened to be. It happened to be my vocation. Becoming serious about it, it's really made me thankful, because it really serves as a way to. It's amazing. I can express myself fully as a human being through this work, and I'm also able to sustain myself on it. I think that in itself is kind of profound and really liberating for the soul.
So, now that the world is waking up and everybody's getting back to live music, what do you hope we all collectively realize about the power of live music now that it's coming back?
Well, I'll circle back around to the healing medium, because whereas the recorded albums have their own art and their own ability to really present a kind of a beautiful, premeditated piece that can really be, there's many degrees on how much it can be tinkered with and, so on and so forth. But live music for me is different in the sense that it's very viscerally felt and very profound in its connection between the people on stage and the people listening. Something that I wanted to capture of this in this music of the album was, it was recorded live, but with no audience, and that lack of an audience, it can't be imagined. The audience, in other words, the musicians can't really imagine the audience. Like we literally need, it made it ever more clear actually that we need real people. So to have real people there, it's going to be cathartic, and so I think that catharsis is going to be healing, and it's going to, at least for me, it's already revealing itself to really be the truth. Live music in particular is, for me, it is the healing medium.
Everyone has a perception or an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. Who do you think you are?
Oh, man. If I get to the root of it, I think, I'll start with the music and I'll work my way towards there. I think the reason I chose music, I think, is to bring kind of a closing of that gap between self and other. Like, for example, the musician and the listener. There's oftentimes, at least from my own perspective, the seemingly most trivial and also the most, let's say, gargantuan conflicts that we run into in daily life and global life, I feel like stem from the separation of self and other, and that kind of dualistic means of understanding, personality and embodiment in our own bodies is, I'd say, a rather Western concept, because in India and in various Asiatic cultures, we're approaching spirituality from a non-dualistic mentality, in that we begin with the supposition that there is no difference between self and other. I guess to say who I am is, I don't know this for a fact, but I certainly feel within myself that I'm here to kind of just do what feels best, and that is, I guess, my vocation to help and to heal others. Maybe who I am is that silence before it becomes adorned with sound. So even when I'm at the drum set, or at any instrument for that matter, I'm trying to be as observant of the silences and of what space I am going to be filling with sound. And I think that helps me establish a sort of sacred and ritualistic basis for when I do make a sound. It's hopefully with embodiment and with mindfulness, and hopefully that kind of attention given to the sound made and adorned will really move others. So maybe I am also the sound. I don't know.
That's cool, man. Yeah, no, that's a deep answer, man. Hey, thank you for taking a minute out to talk about the new album, your life and music, and the future. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, my pleasure. Thank you so much for the call.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Santa Cruz, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Keshav for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.